Hey everyone, happy Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel, but not same bat co-host. Actually, same as last week. Blake is back. Thank you so much to Blake for filling in for Carly, who is off on another adventure. Sure, she and I are going to have a ton to talk about if and when she ever makes it back. But thank you so much for stepping in. And
Of
thank
course.
you to our folks who are already in the chat, ready and eager to hear this week's broadcast. First, as almost always, is Mr. Michael Bingham, wishing everyone a happy Cinco de Mayo, a belated May the 4th. It's
That's
today
right.
Revenge of the 5th, also, right? I guess
Oh, that's true. Yep.
if you are an Orthodox Sith uh, Star Wars follower, I guess. I don't know. We've got Blossom and Michelangelo also celebrating Cinco de Mayo in Derico's Corner. Welcome, folks. And Brian Sager just got tickets to see Patrick Warburton on his comedy tour. Going to see him on July 13th. Nice work, pal. You get these little beauties. All right.
Yeah. Nice little reference.
You
I
know,
love
I
stand-up comedy. I don't think I knew he was a stand-up act. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
I
think
knew that
you know,
about
I
him.
think pretty much everyone who was on Seinfeld
Okay.
probably started out in stand-up at some point. But yeah, I didn't realize he was going on tour, so that's really cool. And I saw that I did the new Expedition Odyssey over
That's
at
right.
SeaWorld, and during the whole pre-show, I kept thinking that Patrick Warburton should be coming out and to do because it's almost the exact same safety spiel down to if the little
Oh,
ones don't
interesting.
measure up to the line, make sure to put the belt through the loop,
Mhm.
word for word, except with no charm or character, just like done by some robot voice. It was so yeah. I was hoping for Putty to show up. All right, well, we've got a few folks. We got almost 50 folks actually already in the chat. So, what do you say we go ahead and kick this thing off
Let's
in
go.
3, 2.
Please lower your head and watch your step while boarding.
Welcome to the Attractions Podcast. You are all clear for dispatch. Have fun.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Attractions Podcast, sponsored by MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. I am Seth.
And I'm Blake.
And we are here to talk to you about the latest and greatest in theme park news and more, as well as what's going on in our own lives. And Blake, thank you for once again stepping in to fill in for Carly, who is off on an adventure. How has your
Of
week
course.
been?
My week's been great. It's been busy as we kind of there's been a few attraction openings as you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
before we started recording Expedition Odyssey at SeaWorld,
Mm-hmm.
as well as just all the prep and ongoing stuff for there's a brand new theme park in Orlando opening in less than 3 weeks now, which is wild. So just
I
been
hadn't noticed.
covering
Had
all that
anyone
from
have
afar.
we ever mentioned that? I haven't heard anything. Uh, yeah, I had a very epic week in the most literal sense of the word. I spent 4 full days from
Wow.
early entry until an hour and a half past closing. Four days out of 5 this week at Epic. Stayed on site at the
Nice.
Stella and walked in bright and early, and was one of the last people to walk out every night. And I got to, I'm still not over it. I was looking at my calendar and say, can I afford to buy one more preview ticket? Because these are very special times. Anyone who has been to the park and complained about lines or waits or crowds, I just want to slap them silly because we are not going to see that park that empty again. Hopefully, unless there is a global depression, we're not going to see that park that empty again for a long, long, long time. And just being able to enjoy it with, I got to go with some friends and family, and it truly a magical experience. And looking forward to it opening to the public, but I really don't want it ever to open the public. I just want it to be in limited capacity previews for all eternity.
I feel like you're kind of becoming the de facto Epic Universe encyclopedia. I
I
emailed you over the weekend, as you know, just a quick little question like, hey,
and
like, does this operations work this way, or how does it,
And honestly, it's literally trying to write a book on a theme park that is just opening, trying to figure out every little quirk when the team members themselves are trying to figure them out. A
Right,
lot of times people ask me questions so like, I'll let you know when they know.
right.
So it's definitely a moving target, and it's extremely exciting and extremely exhausting. And I can't tell you how many steps I put on my step counter. But I did take a break away from Epic Universe to head just down the road to SeaWorld, and Expedition Odyssey open. They had a media preview. They've been having pass holder previews, and you would probably know better than me when the exact grand opening date is. I know my preview was pushed back a couple days. I'm not sure if the actual grand opening has been pushed back or not, but it seems to be running pretty consistently from what
Yeah,
I
so
hear.
it was whatever they had announced. I forget what the exact original opening date was, but that was pushed back. So it officially opens, I believe, this Friday, May
Mhm.
9th. But as you said, it is actively open for pass holders of different tiers.
So I will not give a full in-depth review because I only got one ride, and I like to do a ride at least a few times before I really. But let me just say that the best part of the attraction is that they kept the old Wild Arctic Post show. The belugas are there. There's a baby walrus that is just the most adorable thing ever. You can see the penguins and all that. Go for the post show. I'll
Nice.
leave it at that for now.
Okay.
And we'll see if we have a review of that posted on our website and we talk about it in an upcoming episode. Maybe then I'll give my my hot take. Until then, I think without any further ado, let's just jump right into the news in the queue. All right, first up in this week's news is something that has shot to the absolute top of our most read articles this year, shockingly. Six Flags America, that's located in Bowie, Maryland, in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area, is going to be permanently closing after the end of the 2025 season. That's both the Six Flags theme park, all its roller coasters, and also the Hurricane Harbor Water Park. So that's got to be a blow to the roller coaster enthusiasts who live in the DC market.
Definitely. This is an entire. I'm glad that fans of the park and locals have a little bit of a heads up of like,
Yep.
okay, if you want to visit one last time, you have a whole season to do that. Their season just got underway because they are a seasonal park, so
Yeah.
it'll continue through November 2nd, which it'll conclude with. They'll still have their Fright Fest Halloween event, so that'll be the last thing that they do. And then once that final night of Fright Fest happens, the park will close.
Yep.
And that will be that. And it says they're opening it up to like redevelopment, so it doesn't even sound like there's a potential for the park to be bought by another company and rebranded.
You're absolutely right. They're marketing this. It's nearly 500 acres, and I can't see another theme park company wanting to come in and put attractions there. This is going to be probably housing sprawl, suburban development kind of thing. But currently, these are two of the 42 parks that are in SeaWorld, Six Flags portfolio. It's a really tough thing for the fans who live there, especially considering they just opened a new land called Steamtown.
Yep, last year.
Bunch of new attractions. I would be very surprised if Six Flags did not strip the newer rides out of these and send them off to other parks. I think they have that steampunk themed Nebula Z that we've talked about before. That was one of the new additions. That I'm sure will get sent off somewhere. Six Flags is always very good about taking rides and moving them around. But as for having that park there, I guess folks are going to either have to drive north to Six Flags Great Adventure, or they can drive south to Six Flags in Atlanta, which Six Flags finally purchased all the shares of earlier this year. So.
Or to Carowinds, which is in the Six Flags Park.
Yep, head west to Carowinds. I guess those are your options. So yeah, if you are hoping to experience any of the final season of Six Flags America, they've got Viva La Fiesta, Juneteenth coming up, their 4th of July celebrations, and of course, Fright Fest closing out the season. This will be your final chance.
And I know so Six Flags America, just to be clear,
yes,
it seems some of our readers were a little bit confused in the comments of our social posts. So Six Flags America is the name of this specific park in Maryland. This is not all of the Six Flags parks in America. And as well, there's a few other parks that have very similar names. There's a Six Flags Great America. We're not talking about this park, that park. There's a Six Flags Great Adventure, totally separate. And then there are quite a handful of Hurricane Harbor water parks attached to various Six Flags parks. We're only talking about the Hurricane Harbor that is attached to Six Flags America, which is in the DC Baltimore area. All kind of difficult to parse through all that if you're not super familiar with this specific park, but we are only referring to one part and not all of Six Flags is not shutting down, to be clear.
Yes. If you read any clickbait on Facebook saying all of Six Flags in America are closing, just keep on scrolling and instead go straight to attractionsmagazine.com for the real news. Next up, another theme park is going to be closing, but not permanently, just seasonally. This one is a bit of a shocker and kind of worries me a little. Volcano Bay at Universal Orlando. First, they are going to be removing their very publicized Tapu Tapu virtual line system, which was kind of the signature element of how the park operated when it opened. That system is going away entirely at the beginning of October, this October, which means you'll just get in line for whatever you want and wait in a line like a normal theme park. So that we can talk about that, but the real big change is that coming up in not this year, but October 26th of 2026, the entire theme park will shut down until around March 24th of 2027. That's half a year of closure. And they are implying that means that it will be operating seasonally from then on, that this will not just be a one-time deal, but that could be its permanent seasonal schedule going on. So what is your take on this news?
I have only been to Volcano Bay once in 2021, so it wasn't it wasn't brand new, but it was still pretty new. Everything still felt fresh, and it felt exciting to be in a new water park, that kind of thing. I don't recall Tapu Tapu really being integral to except for maybe like one or two of the rides that we rode. I don't know if it was just maybe not a busy day and they wasn't needed to for every single attraction, but that's the way I remember it being. I'm not quite sure if that's they've actually been experimenting a lot lately with just not even turning on the Tapu Tapu system, not even bothering with it. The first maybe 5 years when the park debuted in peak summer periods especially, it really was a godsend, because it's either stand in a line in the sun for 4 hours for a water slide, because things like that Waturi or the Krakatoa aqua coaster, phenomenal ride, but really low capacity. So the option for the virtual line was really cool. And once they worked out the bugs, and there were a lot of bugs that first season, I actually thought it worked pretty well. But it has been less and less necessary, and maybe they finally decided that
it was a friction point. It was confusing for some guests, and maybe it was more trouble than it was worth.
It is interesting to see the differing approaches and operations, but then also the differences of the responses of like a virtual line for a water park versus a virtual line for like Battle at the Ministry at Epic Universe currently uses a virtual line, and like whether or not these rides use them, and then whether or not guests are excited or disappointed, whether they are there or whether they go away in this case.
You know, I mean, we could probably do an entire episode just on that. I personally, over my 4 days at Epic, which were fantastic, but I was 0 for 12 attempts over 4 days to get the Ministry. I know every trick. I know exactly, you know, I've talked to every team member. I know exactly in theory what you should do to have the best odds. 0 for 12.
Wow.
So so I am definitely not a fan of the way Universal is doing their theme park virtual line at this moment. For all my criticisms of the virtual queue for Tron or for Guardians of the Galaxy, at least once I knew what I was doing, I could consistently get a spot in the line. People don't want to wait 7 hours for a ride, but even more, they don't want to be told they don't have an option to wait 7 hours. People want at least the illusion of freedom, the illusion of choice. And maybe in Japan it flies when you have these shows that you put in for your lottery ticket, and either you get in or it just says sorry, nope, and people accept it and move on in Tokyo. But here, if I want to see the Battle of the Ministry, gosh darn it, and if I have to stand 6 hours, I'll do it. And I think that they really do want that to happen by opening. I've heard that by opening day they want to not have the virtual line, but it would have to just be running much more reliably in order for that to happen. It just has so much downtime at this point that you would quickly have a line that would last the entire operating hours of the day before before early entry is hardly over. So
well, that's why previews are there, I guess.
Honestly, and I have no cause to complain, because honestly, anyone who is going to Epic right now before grand opening day is fully aware that you are a guinea pig. You are paying to be a test dummy. And I'm happy to do that. But it doesn't mean I wasn't frustrated.
Of course. Yeah.
Hot tip for anyone who is going there, just like don't even plan on getting into the Ministry ride. It's a nice bonus if it happens, but make sure you go to the ride sometime between 11 a.m. When the land opens and before 3 p.m., which is when they started to be putting the first group of people on, and ask if that you can walk through the queue. In the mornings, they've been letting anyone without a virtual line walk through the entire queue, including seeing the Higgledy animatronic all the way just before load. And in the afternoon, once they start letting people onto the ride, they will let you just into the atrium and just to look around the atrium. So if you can't get a virtual line, we did that. We couldn't get a virtual line, but honestly, just like Gringotts or Hogwarts Castle, the queue is an attraction by itself. So make sure you do that if you're there for previews.
That's a great
Anyway, so the idea of closing Volcano Bay entirely from late October of 2026 all the way through March of 2027. One, it says to me that they haven't been seeing the attendance to justify staffing for the past couple falls and winters. They've been closing it sporadically for individual days. Makes it hard to staff an attraction if you're randomly closing so many days. People you either need a steady workforce or you need no workforce at all. But trying to constantly fill shifts when people don't know what day a park is going to be open That's rough.
So that's what I
And
was going to ask. Is this their first seasonal
that's
closure of
that's
any
what I was
kind?
going to say. You
Okay.
know, a lot of news right now about Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach both being open at the same time for the first time since COVID, right?
Yep.
Well, that's because Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon both get multi-month extended seasonal refurbishments pretty much every year. Bay has never had that. They've had individual slides shut down for periods of refurbishment,
Okay.
but to my knowledge, there has never been a complete shut down the park for multiple months
Got
since
you.
it opened more than 10 years ago, right?
2017.
2017.
Almost
Okay,
there.
so so 8 years. A lot of wear and tear on a water park in 8 years. So yeah, and by the time this comes around, October of 2026, it will be, coming up
Yeah.
on its 10th anniversary. So
Yeah.
I can certainly see the need to give it a good long downtime. But if this becomes its permanent closure, you know, it that says to me that they don't think that the UK and Canadian markets are going to bounce back very quickly.
Okay.
Because when you go to Volcano Bay, as I try to take at least one winter or fall visit every year, it's very obvious that in the colder months when the park is open, it's not Floridians in
Sure.
there. It's not even New Yorkers. You hear a lot of a boot, and you hear a lot of British accents. Those are the folks who live up north who are happy to go swimming when
Right.
it's 60 degrees here. And the idea of closing the park entirely on a permanent basis for those months implies to me that they think that those markets, tourism in Orlando, is going to be taking a significant hit.
Interesting.
Because that's the market that keeps those parks afloat during the winters. That's my hot take on it.
Okay.
I don't have any statistics and numbers sitting in front of me to back it up. So if you have facts to disprove my opinions, please write us, and we'll read it on the air.
But that is a long time for it to have gone without a seasonal
Yes.
closure, because even like water rides in the parks like Dudley Do
Mhm.
Ride or Kali River Rapids, we see those close for at least a couple weeks,
Absolutely.
usually toward the winter. So
Yep. All right. Well, next we're gonna talk about something a little more positive, not a closure, but an opening, or rather
Hopefully.
a reopening, hopefully. I saw some videos of Top Thrill 2 finally making it up the launch and over the top of the hill on opening day. What is, for the moment, I guess, one of the world's tallest and fastest coasters, since a lot of the world's tallest and fastest coasters have been shutting down recently. Top Thrill 2 came back after a false start. It was supposed to debut back in 2024, but it had its kind of reopening on May 3rd, 2025. And after a few false starts and rollbacks, looks like guests were able to finally ride the ride again. So that's some good news.
This is at Cedar Point, we should mention.
I probably should have mentioned that. Yes, this is
No, you're
at
good.
Cedar Point in Ohio. Top Thrill 2, originally known as Top Thrill Dragster, which was rebuilt, reimagined by Zamperla. And in addition to that, we are going to be seeing the debut of Siren's Curse, which is a terrifying looking tilting coaster. A new type of coaster, at least in the United States. And that is also on its way, opening at an unspecified date in early summer. Top Thrill, have you been on this one?
No, I didn't get to go during its brief week of operation last year, and I didn't ride the original either. I've never been to Cedar Point.
Okay.
But I definitely know their reputation as, kind of an industry leader when it comes
Oh,
to
yeah.
coasters, and it's cool to basically, for the folks who didn't get a chance to ride Top Thrill 2 when it was briefly open last year,
Yeah.
later on in the season, if you haven't been in a couple years, you're essentially getting 2 new roller coasters ready waiting
Yeah.
for you. So I think that's cool, even though the circumstances, excuse me, are a little bit unfortunate with the way that all happened last year, and whatever was
Yeah.
going on. But yeah, did you ever get a chance to ride the
I have
original or the new
I
one?
have never been to Cedar Point. I need to do a Midwest coaster trip someday. It is on my bucket list, especially now that they have the Siren's Curse. We've seen a roller coaster like this built out in Asia, but never in North America before. Think of the tilt track at the beginning of Escape from Gringotts, but
Mm,
put it way, way, way higher in the air, and
Yep.
instead of just a slight angle, straight down. So you're going to have a really frightening moment of just looking straight down and waiting for the tilt track to reconnect before it releases you into oblivion. This is themed to the apparently there is a myth that there are sirens living in Lake Erie. No one's ever spotted them, but maybe you will hear them on the ride. We'll see. This definitely looks like a twisting, totally convoluted, tons of inversions, very, very intense coaster for sure. Yeah, Cedar Point, they're always going back and forth with Six Flags Magic Mountain for the kind of coaster capital of the world. And with these two open, I'm sure coaster fans are going to want to rush out there this summer. And you can buy a season pass for as low as $115 if you head over to their website at cedarpoint.com.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
for a
that's
season pass.
that's I mean that's cheaper than one day at most
Yeah,
theme parks.
yeah.
So. Finally, we're going to wrap up this installment of news about things that have closed or reopened with something about trying to preserve coaster history. Recently, Kingda Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure closed. Didn't give fans really time to get in their last rides, and now the track has literally been imploded. Some really dramatic footage of that online, but the National Roller Coaster Museum and Archives, which is located in Plainview, Texas, is trying to crowdfund funds in order to preserve some ride vehicles from both Kingda Ka as well as some other historic roller coasters. And I have never been to this museum out in Texas. I have heard of ACE before, which is American Coaster Enthusiasts, but I wasn't really even aware that we had a museum and archives out there in Texas.
I believe it's I'm not sure if it's currently open to the public or
Ah.
if they are kind of trying to get a collection together and get
Mm.
funds together. I don't know enough about this particular topic to speak in full confidence about it, but I do know that I'm not sure that it is currently operational, but
Open,
you
yeah.
can kind of help them raise the funds that they're looking for to help preserve some of these coaster trains for I assume future display.
Mhm. Now, I imagine, or I would hope at least, that these theme parks would donate, assuming that this is a nonprofit, would donate the materials, the trains themselves, and maybe
Mhm.
and that this money would be going to like, preserving them or restoring them or putting them on
Right.
display, that sort of thing. But the four that they're crowdfunding for right now, and I would be very curious to hear your take, because I know I have my opinion on whether or not some of these are worthy of historic preservation. I think we could probably all agree on Kingda Ka. I mean, it was the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the world for quite a period of time. I think that's a record worth honoring, sure, right? Nighthawk, which is a Vekoma that was built back in 2000, originally called Stealth at Great America. That was the world's first flying coaster. I don't know if you ever got to do this, but this was before
I
you
did.
did. Oh,
I did it after it had been shipped to Carowinds.
okay. So I've said because I've done other models of flying coasters. This was kind of unique because you would standing up, and it would sort of lie you down on your back and flip you over at the first hill, right?
Yes, yes,
Oh, tell me, what was it like?
terrifying,
Yeah.
terrifying. It was one of those, so this is true for basically any coaster that you're on, like, your safety is in the hands of the coaster, essentially, but that one is every time I rode it, it was something that quality, that safety is, like, something that is, like, hyper you are, like,
Uh,
hyper conscious of, like, if this thing gives way, you're toast because you are facing the ground for the majority of the ride
right.
and there's nothing, you have a harness on, of course.
Mm.
But yeah, that was a wild one, and kind
Yeah.
of that one every time you got off, you're like, I don't know if I. It was
Yeah.
fun, but like definitely
Definitely,
safety is top of mind more than other.
a unique experience when it came out 25 years ago.
And that one also had a very light Star Trek theme at some point in its life when it was known
Oh,
as Borg
the Borg
Assimilator.
assimilator.
So this is
Yes,
that ride, yes.
yes. It had I think it had like was there a sphere or a cube outside
Yes,
of?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
So third up, and this is a really interesting one, La Vibora, which was originally at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This is a very rare type of Intamin Swiss Bob trackless coaster, kind of inspired by the old Flying Turns, where there was no track. It was just a big trough, and you would basically be in a bobsled, slip and sliding. I remember when one of the sister rides to this was called the Sarajevo Bobsleds at Six Flags Great Adventure. It was put in there for the 1984 Winter Olympics, and terrible capacity. Terribly unsafe. I don't know if any of them ever flipped over, but I know they always looked like they were going to flip over. And that this is really it was more like something you would like see in an old documentary about Coney Island rides, that like how did people survive? Did you ever get to go on one of those models?
No, but looking back at the pictures of this, I kind of had the same thoughts that you did of like,
Yeah.
whoa, that looks, what are the parameters that are in place for that?
There's something kind of similar at Knoebels. They have the Flying Turns, and
Yes, okay, that's what I saw a picture of recently then.
yes.
Yeah.
And then and also at in Efteling, there's also, or at least there was, it might have shut down, a bobsled ride. But those are like more wooden, and this was like hard fiberglass and metal, and always
Okay.
terrified me. Finally, Time Warp, and this was coming from Canada's Wonderland. And this is a Zamperla Volare, which they actually had for a short period of time at Cypress Gardens before it became Legoland. Mercilessly, they took it out when it became Legoland. This should be preserved as an example of what not to do with a roller coaster.
Okay.
This is possibly the most uncomfortable restraint system on the face of the earth. You are
Wow.
basically, it is like being stapled into a George Foreman grill.
Oh god.
You would kind of step up into this thing. It was a flying coaster where you'd step up and it would lie you flat on your stomach, and you'd be kind of smushed from top, and with a hamster cage around your head.
Wow.
And it is one of the roughest. There's a heartline roll on it that was designed to make your heart just tear right out of your chest, like Mola Ram in Temple of Doom.
Mm.
The absolute most uncomfortable ride probably built in this century.
Wow.
And just that should be preserved for all eternity, like the way that we preserve sites of great tragedies, or memorials to it was unspeakably evil.
How long has this been closed? Do you know? Is it like a recent
I
thing or has it been closed a while?
That's a good question. I assume that they shipped this out of the country because maybe Canada doesn't have though I can't imagine. I don't know. I didn't even know it had been moved up there. So,
Okay.
there's probably some more of these still existing out in Europe, where they don't seem to mind torturing park guests quite as
Yeah, a
much.
cage around your neck
It
seems very
really
unpleasant.
go look up videos of this. This is one of the worst things that humanity has ever created.
Mm.
Yeah, so so if you are interested in seeing these and some other historic coaster cars from Six Flags, Cedar Point, and other theme parks, there is going to be a preview event called Back to the Museum. This is going to be on July 26th at the National Roller Coaster Museum and Archives. This will also give you a chance to own some new exclusive retail items. Your purchases will help support the museum. Tickets are only $20. You save $5 if you are an ACE member. So good to know that they have an association with American Coaster Enthusiasts. And you can register now at aceonline.org. Okay, well, that is going to bring us to the end of the news in the queue. And I'm sorry that Volare just got me worked up. So while I do some deep breathing exercises and try to calm down, I think it's time for us to hear a word from our sponsors.
The Attractions Podcast is brought to you by MEI and MEI-Travel. Whether your next vacation is a magical trip to the theme parks, an exciting adventure to the pyramids of Egypt, or just a relaxing cruise on the turquoise waters of the Bahamas, MEI-Travel provides premium service and expert advice to help you get the most of your vacation. They are always free of any hidden fees or costs to you. Visit them at mei-travel.com.
It's time for the main attraction!
And for this week's main attraction, we are heading out to Tokyo, Japan, where the Oriental Land Company had a corporate meeting sharing some long-term goals for the next decade. And towards the second half of that decade, in the 2030s, they are looking to do 2 very large-scale redevelopments of their park, which could completely change both Adventureland inside Tokyo Disneyland and Port Discovery over at Disney Sea. I am so glad I got to go out there this past September and see the current versions of these lands. But I am thrilled to see how OLC just keeps pouring more and more money into their parks. Have you made it yourself out to Japan?
No, unfortunately not. But I know it is a special place for a lot of theme park fans.
Well, I know we will definitely be following this development from afar. And before we get too far into digging into it, we have to put a huge disclaimer. All of this art, as they repeatedly told us, is just artist concepts. This is not blueprints. This is not construction diagrams. This is just an idea of what they could be doing with the land. And honestly, we can see a lot of wispy clouds and just sort of vague blobs, which is what Disney does with their artwork, going back to like that very first, was it Herb Ryman sketch of Disneyland, where he put like a giant hot air balloon right over it, floating over the park,
Right.
to obscure the
That's a
fact that they
great
didn't know
point.
exactly what they were doing in that back corner. So anytime you see lots of clouds and wispy stuff, they don't know. Who knows what it could be. But this is just kind of giving us an impression of, first of all, let's look at Adventureland, which right now is home to the Jungle Cruise, the Swiss Family Treehouse, a Stitch version of the Tiki Room. All that gone. And in its place is what we are speculating looks like it could be attractions from Up, from Encanto, maybe from The Incredibles, and maybe Moana.
So it's just some imagery that suggests some of those themes, like balloons. Well, what other Disney movie has balloons? It's probably up. The Incredibles one looks very reminiscent of that island that Mr. Incredible goes to in the first film. So just kind of some of just
Yeah.
clues, some more subtle than others. For like, okay, maybe that's what that is, or maybe it's not, for all we know. So yeah.
Yeah. So to kind of like orient yourself, if you were looking at the large overview, in the upper left hand, you have Frontierland, more or less. I'm sorry, not Frontierland. I apologize. New Orleans Square, which is with the clouds in the back, kind of covering the Pirates of the Caribbean show building. That all looks completely intact. That's as it is today. But everything in front of that looks entirely new. Sort of in the top center, it looks like we have a large dark ride show building with a waterfall similar to the big waterfall in Up. We've got some balloons down in front of it. It also looks like in front of it we have a bridge that people are walking across. So some sort of either playground or accessible elevated area. In the far upper right-hand corner, as you mentioned, the Villains Island from The Incredibles with some sort of, looks like a vintage monorail themed roller coaster circling around that land. Then sort of dead center, we have a series of boats in a lagoon that look Moana-ish, I would say. And we have some other buildings that look vaguely South American to me, Central American. I honestly don't know. It could be a lot of different franchises at this point. But then in the bottom right-hand corner, we have this weird kind of brownish blobbish with lots of clouds. This is sort of where Big Thunder Mountain and Splash Mountain are currently. And
Okay.
I don't see either of those going away, especially not Splash Mountain. The Japanese audiences seem to absolutely love Splash Mountain, and they don't really have the same affinity for Tiana. So I don't see them replacing that anytime soon. But this is, everything that currently is the Jungle Cruise. This could also mean the removal of the railroad entirely, because the railroad only has one station. It isn't you get on and off. It's always a round trip. And the station for the railroad there is located directly above the station for the Jungle Cruise, and they're kind of all integrated into one thing. So I think if the Jungle Cruise goes, the railroad goes, and would really completely, because right now Tokyo Disneyland is kind of like a greatest hits park. It's got a few very unique things like Beauty and the Beast and Pooh's Honey Hunt, but a lot of it is kind of like they picked parts of Magic Kingdom and Disneyland Park and just sort of transplanted them.
Gotcha.
Now, right now, they're totally redoing their Space Mountain. So their Tomorrowland is kind of getting rid of a lot. It was still had a lot of that 70s Magic Kingdom vibe in the angles and everything, and that's pretty much being wiped away, along with the Wreck-It Ralph ride that's coming in. So this looks like another step in the kind of making their park as unique as possible, and as many one-of-a-kind attractions as possible, which I think is great. So the other thing that we have to look at is the Port Discovery, and this is not one of the more hyped lands in Tokyo Disney Sea. Everyone wants to go see Fantasy Springs, which is the new land that they opened this summer, which is amazing. Everyone wants to go see Mysterious Island with the Journey of the Center of the Earth, which is still like top 5 ride, or their version of Tower Terror, which is really unique. But no one really, plans a trip around riding Aquatopia until you ride Aquatopia, and it's just so much fun. So what this artwork shows us is that the Finding Nemo simulator ride that they currently have, the building for that looks completely intact. Don't know if they'd change out hopefully what the ride is in there, because that is not one of Disney's stronger simulators. But the location for that hasn't changed. What has changed is the large body of water where the trackless Aquatopia ride, which is a really cute little, it's similar to kind of Luigi's over in California Adventure, except with water. It's
That honestly sounds like dream come true, because
yeah,
Luigi's I feel like is a sleeper hit too. Like,
absolutely, and it's one of those rides that's like as much fun to watch from
yes,
afar as it is
yes,
to
yes.
actually be on. But oh my gosh, Aquatopia gets you so completely soaked. I like Popeye's bilge rat barges soaked on that thing. And I will be a little sad. Glad I got to do it a couple times on my trip, because that is completely wiped out. And in its place, what we have is a series of buildings. These buildings down front look to me like probable retail and restaurant, but
Okay.
it looks like we have a massive show building for what could be an indoor dark ride or indoor coaster type thing, taking up the whole back half. And with the fog, who knows how far back that goes. If you went back there, you're getting into the New England area, where they have a little Duffy area, and then it gets into where um, the big steamship, the kind of baby Titanic, is back there.
Interesting.
So there is, I mean, there would be an impressive, enough room to build a pretty impressive indoor attraction there. There's no obvious signs about what the IP could be. It kind of looks like it's keeping that same Jules Verne steampunky vibe as the rest of the land. So who knows what that attraction would be based around. But it does seem like the ship, there's a steam or a passenger ship that kind of takes you around the park, sort of like the railroad does at the other Disney parks. And I don't know if that passage would, it's still showing the ship here, but it's kind of showing a turnaround here, whereas before the river would extend to another station off to the left. So that might end up shortening the path of that riverboat.
Yeah, it's all very interesting with such long-term concept art like this. I mean, they said that they intend it to be open by 2035. Well,
Yeah,
that's a long way away.
we got
And a
10,
lot of
10
times
years. A lot of things can change for sure in 10 years. But
and I think we've
coming,
seen varying degrees of like, even this, is this just a what if concept
right?
stage at this point, or is this more of concrete? Like, this is
Yeah.
pretty much what we're thinking, but we might change, or is this just like we're still blue sky, anything is on the table? That also hasn't really been established either. And I think we've seen them in the past do varying degrees of that, right? Like with I think Disneyland Forward, all that concept art was very much theoretical, hypothetical. Maybe, I don't know. But then you have stuff like the Tropical Americas concept art, the initial version, where it seemed like it was maybe a little bit more solidified, but then changed later on. So it's hard to tell which of these this is, or something completely different.
Yeah, I always feel like I can kind of I feel like I can kind of tell how far this is along in the spectrum, from like blue sky on one hand to shovels in the ground on the other, by how much they've dialed up the Photoshop painterly effects. Like, if it all looks like it was done with a big blobby oil brush, and everything is kind of like smeary and soft, like like these are, I feel like, yeah, this is really early on. This is like, when they showed up that first Beyond Big Thunder Mountain artwork,
Exactly.
that it looked like some abstract art from the Museum of Modern Art, and you have to kind of squint to figure out, on the other end, that when we're seeing stuff like Universal puts out like these renderings that are like CGI fly-throughs, and you can see every leaf on every tree, exactly where every pebble is going. It's like that, and then it usually turns out looking 99% like that. If they get to the point where they're modeling all of this in Blender, then they've gotten pretty far along.
Yeah.
So that's my gut instinct, but it's OLC is just going from strength to strength. coming in with the new Peter Pan and Tangled, and especially the Frozen ride that they added this past summer. And they've they got a bright future for the next 10 years, looking like. There's I gotta say, after spending 4 days at Epic Universe, it's about the only thing that can kind of sort of mildly satisfy the urge to go back to Tokyo, which anyone who has been to Tokyo knows that as soon as you're flying back from Tokyo, you're starting to plan when's the next time I can go to Japan. And the only thing that has distracted me from that thought is when can I go back to Epic Universe. So
you mentioned some sentiment toward Aquatopia. Is there anything in the other park in Adventureland at Tokyo Disneyland that you would be particularly sad to
absolutely
see
not.
get rid of?
The Jungle Cruise that they have there, while it is well done and well maintained, is also the problematic version of the Jungle Cruise that
Okay, got you.
has not received any updates. Likewise, their train just kind of goes around in a circle. It doesn't actually take you anywhere. So you don't get to see the variety of sights that you do on all the other trains.
Okay.
And their version of Tiki Room reminded me a little too much of the old version with under new management with Iago. I love Stitch and all, and it's a very good Stitch animatronic. It's like seeing the old Stitch animatronic from Stitch Encounter transplanted into the Tiki Room for no apparent reason. I'm glad I saw it once.
Stitch, and
I saw it once, but I never need to see it again.
So good.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I'm glad I got to see it while it existed. But I will be very happy to see an all-new Adventureland next time I'm out there, hopefully.
And I think interesting, too, to see some of these new, not necessarily new anymore. Incredibles came out over 20 years ago. But by comparison of what else is in other Adventurelands globally, it's nice to see Pixar properties and newer Disney properties not just relegated to, just put it in Hollywood Studios or California Adventure as a catch-all for, a quote-unquote modern Disney movie, finding a way to integrate it into where it does make sense, as those are adventures, even though it's maybe a different flavor of adventure that Adventureland currently represents. I like kind of expanding what that theme could be in theory.
Well, I think the contrast between the kind of naturalistic South American jungles of Up and then transitioning into the more fantasy sci-fi jungle from the villain's island in Incredibles could be really cool. And it's about time Incredibles got a ride built from the ground up for it. Incredicoaster is a fun coaster, but it's very obviously that this stuff was just slapped on as an afterthought and not a fully e-ticket adventure in the world of the Incredibles that's totally themed out and not just another coaster that's been rethemed. Would be really nice. I think that franchise deserves it.
Right.
All right. Well, that is going to bring us to the end of this episode, but it's time now to take a look back at some of the comments that you folks left us in the chat. Michael McKay is always happy to see you, Blake.
Thank you.
And Jeremy has a question, says that there's a controversy with Ministry of Magic virtual queue. I don't know exactly what the specific controversy you're referring to is, but I know that me personally, I tried every trick in the book for 4 days straight, 3 times a day, and I had no luck. So I am hoping that they do find a way of getting rid of that as soon as possible, for sure. And Michael Bingham says that the Time Warp ride at Canada's Wonderland is actually still running, and it's closing this week at May 8th. So thoughts and prayers to anyone who suffers through its final days of operation. Yeah, so that gives you time if you want to take a quick trip up there. Blake, Michael suggests that you run
That's
up
true.
and
Could take a
give it
quick
a
trip.
try. Yeah, Michael Bingham says that not having the Jungle Cruise at Tokyo Disneyland is hard to imagine. It is a staple. Even harder to imagine than Rivers of America going away at Magic Kingdom. Too soon. Too soon. And finally, Vince Lamb checking in to wish everyone a happy Cinco de Mayo, early National Tourism Day, and Mother's Day. Well,
That's right.
thank you. I am the mother to several cats, so I appreciate that. And we are happy to talk about Tokyo Disneyland in detail with you. I'm always happy to talk about Tokyo Disneyland. So thank you to all of us for listening. And thank you also to our sponsors, MEI and MEI-Travel. I'd like to remind everyone to please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you happen to listen to us. And also give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube. You can follow us at attractionsmagazine.com and search for Attractions Magazine on your favorite social media platforms. Blake, can you give us those locations to keep up with you and the attractions team?
Yes. So I'm the managing editor of our website content at attractionsmagazine.com. And we have May is a big month. Not only, obviously, there's everything happening with Epic Universe, which you can find at attractionsmagazine.com/Epic Universe. But also, as we kind of mentioned earlier in the episode, a lot of these regional seasonal parks are starting to open for their operating seasons and debut new rides. So like we covered earlier in the episode, we have coverage from Top Thrill 2, we'll have coverage from Siren's Curse, as well as some other smaller parks, not quite on the scale of Disney or Universal, like Busch Gardens Williamsburg is about to open their Big Bad Wolf coaster. It's brand new, kind of an ode to a past attraction. So we'll have coverage from a lot of those smaller parks as well this month on attractionsmagazine.com from our team. And also, with everything Universal is doing for Epic Universe, it's kind of a pleasant surprise that they're investing anywhere else because there is so much they're investing in. But we have a lot of great written content from the FanFest Nights event, which we covered on the show already, but some reviews and behind the scenes stuff that have been posted since our last podcast episode from some of our reporters who were there at the event. So you can kind of hear in person from people who were there what their thoughts were about being there, especially if you're a Back to the Future fan. We have a full story dedicated to that whole experience.
Yes, absolutely. Read those articles and also check out our YouTube channel because we've got some great videos of all of those activations. The Back to the Future event looked absolutely fantastic. Finally, you can find me at theunofficialguides.com, where you can pick up copies of my book or find me on socials at @skuberski. And until next week, we hope you folks stay safe, try something new, and most importantly, have fun. See you again next time. Bye.